Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today for Fantasy Thursday, we dive into a little return of the old world talk as we discuss just what could be in the future for a returned Bretonnia. So with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so with Warhammer Fantasy in development behind closed doors, and with one of the few updates we have been blessed with being a glimpse of the fair and pleasant land of Bretonnia, I thought it only right we have a little more speculation on just what to expect when the realm of Bretonnia returns once more. Now, I first fell in love with Bretonnia the moment I saw that old school codex all those many years ago now, back in the mid-90s. As a young kid seeing those classic Knights of the Realm, that amazing evocative artwork, just screaming King Arthur and the Lady of the Lake, it just suited me right down to a T. And though I admit I wasn't too happy with the later fantastical developments, such as pilgrims carrying skeletons of Grail Knights around, Bretonnia always remained closest to my heart of all the Warhammer Fantasy factions. There are others I love, such as the Dwarfs, the Wood Elves, Vlad von Carstein, but there's only one Bretonnia. Now, the first thing we know is the timeline has taken a shift back a couple of hundred years. So the renowned King Lewin Leoncoeur is not upon the throne anymore. It is instead King Lewin Orcslayer, and his name is aptly given, for he is notable for declaring the Errantry War in the year 2201 to cleanse the realm of the Greenskin menace once and for all. And in looking back at the updates we received on the Warhammer community website back in December, this is something quite clearly going to be taking place when the old world finally returns. Because while there is undoubtedly orcs in every dark corner of the old world, and there always will be, just taking a look at the region of Couronne shows the situation is not looking good. The orcs are running rampant across the region, not to mention the northern end of the Grey Mountains, as well as the Pale Sisters. Now, just what is an errantry war, I hear you ask? Well, allow me to indulge you with a short passage from the old school Bretonnian Codex. The tradition of the errantry wars derives from the old custom of the errand of knighthood. Usually individual knights-errant are set tasks to accomplish on their own, such as slaying a dragon to prove themselves worthy of a knight's domain. When Bretonnia was invaded by enemies, the king and the dukes used this custom to raise large numbers of new knights by setting such tasks as capturing an enemy banner or bringing back the head of an enemy champion. The campaign would thus become an errantry war, and enthusiasm for the cause would spread throughout Bretonnia. As the war raged, many knights-errant would through reckless courage accomplish just such tasks, and thus become Knights of the Realm. Soon the king and the dukes realised that errantry wars are an excellent way of mustering huge armies quickly and increasing the number of knights at their disposal. As for rewarding the knights-errant with land, this was no problem either. The knights would be told they could keep any territory that they could capture from the enemy. The errantry war is absolutely going to be a driving force in this Bretonnian narrative. And quite possibly, this will involve the saving of Couronne, or even its reconquest. because it was heavily hinted. And if you look closely on the update, the symbol for the walled city of Cologne appears to be on fire. Now, whether it's under siege or worse, already fallen to the greenskin menace, has yet to be revealed. I have a feeling that it may just have already fallen to the greenskins. Now, what of the king, I hear you ask? Well, King Lewin Orcslayer appears to be based down in the central province known as Bastogne, which is a big departure from the traditional capital of Cologne. Now again, why this is yet to be revealed. However, there could be a multitude of reasons. King Lewin quite obviously must have been the Duke of Bastogne before his coronation. Perhaps he simply chose to reign from there. The narrative could have been changed, so Cologne is no longer the traditional capital for the king. Or perhaps its situation is so dire that King Lewin has simply had no other choice. Either way, I actually really like this change. And speaking of the king, I hope they don't go too OTT with his model. I really wish he would simply be on a horse, the king of the realm riding out at the head of his host of knights. I know it's unlikely, a Pegasus or a Hippogriff the more probable options, but to me those models were getting a little insane in the end times era. Something that big just doesn't fit into the theme of Bretonnia, at least to me. I hope they scale it down at least a little. It can still be awesome, and I've no doubt it will be. I just hope they keep it in balance with the theme of the army. A knight of old, the king of the realm, leading the charge. That old school Leon Kerr model, for example. Now that to me screams leader of the faction, king of Bretonnia, yet still easily fits in with the theme of the army. It doesn't overshadow the rest of the force. And that leads us on to the rest of the special characters. The Green Knight and Morriganna Le Fay will undoubtedly, thankfully, return, because age is not an issue for those characters. They have always been around since the founding of the kingdom. And for those two in particular, I really hope GW does what they did for Mephiston's model in 40k, in honouring and using his awesome old school art for inspiration. I mean, just look at this old school art for the Green Knight and the Fey Enchantress. Such amazing artwork. And it's got to be said, I really preferred this first Fey to the later update she received. Again, there's just so much more character in this one. As for the rest, however, the Dukes of course will all be brand new, and the fan favourites such as Bertrand the Brigand, essentially Robin Hood and his merry men, will hopefully make an appearance. I think we'd all forgive a little timeline playing around to see some minor old school favourites return. But what else can we expect for Bretonnia in a lore sense? Well, looking at the new map, I think it's very clear. Aside from the orcs, the Bretonnians are going to have much more interaction with the elves. The ruins of the former High Elf settlements have now been returned to their former glory, and there are 4 such settlements now that lay across the western coast of Bretonnia, and 2 of which are actually upon the mainland itself, within the kingdom of Bretonnia. Now, I'm sure this is a peaceful arrangement, but do you really expect tensions to never arise? Just what happens if a new War of the Beard breaks out? I don't see Bretonnia too happy with armies marching across the land, using their kingdom as a battleground. because again, I just have a hunch that this is a narrative that is going to play out. And just what happens if Malekith gets up to his old tricks of attacking the other races whilst disguised as his high elven kin? Those encampments within Bretonnian land now look awfully vulnerable, and dare I say it, nigh on arrogant to be within the realm of the lady. Oh, I can see some great campaign narratives to come. I don't think the Phoenix King would take it lying down. That is a war that could devastate the coasts of not only Bretonnia, but Ulthuan as well. And then lastly, of course, we have the Wood Elves. In the previous days of fantasy, very much locked away within the forest of Athel Loren. Their relationship with Bretonnia, by and large, a very peaceful one, save for any Bretonnian lord foolish enough to ever enter the forest border. The King of Bretonnia could count on the Forest of Loren to protect their border to the southeast. Any enemy crazy enough to be attempting to reach Bretonnia through the Forest of Athel Loren was never heard from again. Now, will this relationship remain true in the new edition? Well, I hope so, but I do have to say, again, I have a feeling the tensions will be played up quite a bit. The elves have expanded up into the Forest of Arden, and the room for conflict just became much greater. The Forest of Athel Loren is very much the Wood Elves' kingdom. The Bretonnians have never really laid claim to this area. Aside from a few skirmishes, it has pretty much always been a peaceful coexistence between the two realms. However, the Forest of Arden is very much a different story, because this area is undoubtedly the kingdom of Bretonnia, whether the Wood Elves like it or not. The lords of the realm will have no such reservations about entering into this forest, and I do not believe the King and Queen of the Wood will be too happy about that. Now, this also raises the question of how the elves even got there. Have they always been there since the elves retreated from across the world, leaving a pocket of resistance within the Forest of Arden, an outpost, if you will, for the King and Queen of the Wood? Or is it more of a recent expansion? Is there a world route, for example, linking the two forests? Or do the elves have to risk travelling across the surface and through Bretonnia? Again, I don't see that going unnoticed if this is the case. Now, in talking of the future of Bretonnia, perhaps the most famous Bretonnian storyline is the affair of the False Grail and the fall of Mucilon. And well, we'll dive into this in depth on a later video, as it's definitely a storyline we will see in the new old world. It's actually one of the big reasons I really enjoy having the timeline moved back this few hundred years. There are so many fantastic storylines now that we get to experience firsthand. Now, we won't get to see this at first, with the Empire going through civil war and the errantry war across Bretonnia itself. These two narratives will absolutely take precedence to begin. However, after that, maybe a year or two down the line, once the old world has truly been re-established, oh, you can rest assured the affair of the False Grail and the fall of Mucilon is absolutely going to be a campaign supplement down the line. There's no way GW will pass up on that opportunity. The question then becomes which other races may attempt to exploit this moment of turmoil within the kingdom of Bretonnia, because these campaigns are never left to just one faction. There's definitely going to be some development on the lore we have always known. But as always guys, what do you think? What do you want to see for Bretonnia when it relaunches once more? And what do you expect of the errantry war against the orcs? Will Corone have fallen? Or will it still be standing, holding out against the greenskin menace? Do you expect King Luan Orcslayer to live up to his title? Or will he find things harder going in this new updated lore? And does the Kingdom of Bretonnia need to send the High Elves packing? Maybe reminding the elves just for once to mind their own business. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.